But we're going to start off in Canada. Danielle Smith leading the way and hoping to avoid these tariffs and avoiding them on day one. But there's some bad news coming with that as well. Carney claims he's an outsider with experience. Assisted dying law in the United Kingdom. So they're doing all of the things we're doing in Canada over there. Kingston in Canada calls a state of emergency for food insecurity. Jagmeet Singh confirms that he will vote no confidence at his earliest opportunity in the government. So he's saying, I am not going to support any of the new Liberal leaders. Everybody's told me that they don't want anybody, they don't want to give the Liberals another chance, so we're going to vote no in any confidence vote that comes up. So that's very interesting because I think I'm still convinced that we're going to be going to October and we're not going to get an election in the short term because I think the government is going to try and blame Trump for all of the issues that have been caused by Justin Trudeau's bad policies, the Liberals' NDP bad policy. I digress. Trump is expected to attend Davos today virtually. National energy emergency was declared by Trump. Invasion at the southern border emergency also declared by Trump. Elon was throwing a Roman salute. And I mean, who saw that coming, right? Yeah, right. Trump is back and the tariff threats are also back. So there's a whole bunch to get to. Let's get to it first. Danielle Smith. We will start off with tariff threats and the tariff reality coming in hot February 1st, Trump says. But first, we avoided tariffs yesterday. So yay, right? Like that's good news, everybody. We're not economically nuked from Washington. So that's positive. Good. Yay, right? But there's a but to that, right? So everything before the but doesn't really matter. Here's Danielle Smith before Trump casually mentioned that he thinks February 1st is going to be the day they implement the tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Danielle Smith says, Alberta is pleased to see that today President Donald Trump has decided to refrain from imposing tariffs on Canadian goods at this time as they study the issue further. We appreciate the implied acknowledgement that this is a complex and delicate issue with serious implications for American and Canadian workers, businesses, and consumers given the integration of our markets, along with our critical energy and security partnership. All of that is one of the reasons why I say we're already living in a situation where we're a de facto state, vassal state of the United States. We are not our own sovereign country. We don't have much of a military. We don't have much of anything, really. And our economy completely depends on the United States. And if the United States broke any of the things that Danielle Smith just listed, we'd be screwed. Screwed doesn't even begin to describe it. And if you want to avoid that, you're going to do whatever the guy in charge says, basically, right? I think, personally anyway. And again, I don't think we're going to have much of a say in all of this. Moving on, or carrying on with Danielle Smith. Avoiding tariffs will save hundreds of thousands of Canadian and American jobs across every sector. As an example, declining to impose U.S. tariffs on Canadian energy will preserve the viability of dozens of U.S. refineries and facilities that upgrade Alberta crude and the tens of thousands of Americans employed by them. Despite the promising news today, the threat of U.S. tariffs is still very real. As a country, we need to immediately take the following steps to preserve and strengthen our economic and security partnership with the United States and to avoid the future imposition of tariffs. 1. Focus on diplomacy and refrain from further talk of retaliatory measures, including export tariffs or cutting off energy to the United States. Having spoken with the president, as well as dozens of governors, senators, members of Congress, and allies of the incoming administration, I'm convinced that the path to a positive resolution with the United States, with our U.S. allies, is strong and consistent diplomacy and working in good faith towards shared priorities. The worst possible response to today's news would be the federal government or premiers declaring victory or escalating tensions with unnecessary threats against the United States. 2. Negotiate ways to increase what Canadians and Americans buy from one another. As an example, the United States should look for purchasing more oil, timber, and agricultural products from Canada, while Canada should look at purchasing more gas turbines, military equipment, and the computer hardware needed to build our growing AI data center sector. Finding ways to increase trade in both directions will be critical to achieving a win-win for both countries. Double down on border security. Within the next month, all border provinces should either by themselves or in partnership with the federal government deploy the necessary resources to secure our shared border from illegal drugs and migration. And that 4, announced major acceleration of Canada's 2% GDP NATO target. This is clearly a shared priority that benefits our nations. There's no excuse for further delay. 5, crack down on immigration streams and loopholes that are known to permit individuals hostile to Canada and the United States to enter our country and restore immigration levels and rules to those under former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. I just want to comment really quickly. Canada is fast-tracking people from Gaza and giving them money. So welcome to Canada. Here's $3,000. Hope you don't disappear over that leaky border we've got. He. And it seems like if I was Trump, I'd do worse. Honestly, I'd do worse. And so he's showing restraint. Maybe I'm just petty. I'm not sure. But I'd do worse. And to protect my citizens, to protect my interests, right? If I'm in charge of Canada, not to say I'd do worse, but you have to work with the leverage you've got, and you have to make it sting. Otherwise, they're going to ignore you, right? And so I'd do worse. But like I think we're lucky, and we're not doing anything. We're making a show of not doing anything. We're spending all this money, and it's not effective, when at the same time we're taking people from Gaza and handing them money, right? So on one side we're trying to say, oh, Trump, we're spending money on Chinese drones, and we're spending money on police to patrol the borders and things like that. Please don't put these tariffs on us. But then at the same time, in doing things that directly put American security at risk, we can't do that, clearly, because Trump noticed, right? And so, I mean, more fool us, I think, personally. Like, if Trump says, I'm going to impose tariffs, these are the conditions, and then the governments, respective governments, the provincial and federal, go off and work on China and work on this and work on that, but not the things that have been asked for. And then Trump comes into office and says, you know what, you're right, I'm not going to do it today, but I'll do it in a couple of weeks. More fool us, we wasted time. We didn't listen, and we should have. And I don't think we're going to listen again, because it's the Liberal strategy to make this bad and hand Trump the bag. 6, the last one, immediate repeal of all federal anti-energy policies, production caps, CERs, C-69, and fast-track Northern Gateway and Energy East pipeline pre-approvals. Yep, 100%. If I'm Doug Ford, I'm building a pipeline right now. Right now, I'm saying this is where the Ontario pipeline is going to start on this side, and this is where it's going to terminate on that side. And I hope you start building pipelines, because we're going to have one ready to go. And then I'd twin it. Probably I'd have plans to twin it, but I'd also put one north-south and east-west. So up and down the 401 corridor and east-west across the province to deliver oil and gas and needed everything east, right? Because what are we doing wasting all of this money? My gosh, this is going to be a long show. Dan McTeague says, agreed. Too bad that she's not our prime minister. The food professor says, Danielle Smith just gave Canada a masterclass in what it means to actually lead for her constituency. Naturally, everyone outside Alberta is clutching their pearls in horror. Good for her. And Dan McTeague says, good, agreed. Too bad she's not our prime minister. While Team Canada wanted to go nuclear, the provincial leader with the fuel showed calm restraint and emerges the wisest and most prudent defender of Canada's interests, not Eastern Canadians' premiers or the pretend prime minister. And he's, it's good that he's on his way out. Doug Ford was threatening yesterday to pull American alcohol off the shelves. Rebel News is highlighting this. Doug Ford says he's directed the LCBO to clear all American alcohol off the shelves if Trump moves forward with the steep tariffs he suggested could be coming. Jack says, anyone else think Doug Ford is an idiot? Yep, there's a whole long story about how he talked to the governor of Kentucky about it. But there's so much show, we just have to keep moving on. So after Doug Ford, well, not really, I'm just making a joke, but after yesterday, Donald Trump has thought about it a little bit, and Financial Juice says Trump to enact tariffs on Canada and Mexico on February 1st. And the first thing I said was, holy smoke, do you have a source? Where's the source? You can't do this to me, right? And then I went and found the source and then responded to the guy with the source. And so here's the source. Donald Trump says, yeah, I think we're gonna do that. I think we're gonna kill Canada on February 1st. We've called in the hit. It's fine. Next question. Here we go.
Where are you thinking on tariffs on Mexico, given these actions you're signing on the border?
Well, we're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada, because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in, and fentanyl to come in.
When do you think you would enact those?
I think February 1st.
Are you planning on giving notice of that?
I think we'll do it February 1st.
That was my favorite part. Are you planning on giving notice of that? I think we'll do it February 1st. Like, is that not notice, dude? Do you not understand what's happening right in front of you? Like, what is happening here? Carry on.
25% on both, sir.
Sir,
On each.
On each, yes.
this is an executive order taking a large number of...
Okay, so 25% right from the Trump's mouth. And okay, so are you going to listen to him now, Canada? Are you going to listen to him, leadership of Canada, right? Tom Quiggin is responding to Toronto Morning. Toronto Morning says Canada is about to pay a steep price for its chronic failure to diversify trade away from the United States. No, we're going to pay a steep price, says Tom Quiggin, for allowing multiple terrorist front organizations to grow in Canada while letting China take over much of our government. Trudeau's crushed our economy and divided the country just when we need to be capable. Canada's current position is that of a self-inflicted wound. We have injured ourselves, and we're in a position where we're so economically weak that Trump can take us over. And he is sensing that weakness and utilizing it to the United States advantage. And I can't fault him for it because as I said, if I had that kind of leverage, I'd do worse probably, right? Like Jagmeet Singh says, I love this country and I'll do anything to defend it. Today, as Donald Trump takes office, his threats to impose tariffs become even more real. Well, they're real in that he's absolutely said he's going to. Here's Jagmeet Singh. I think this is before the tariffs were confirmed by Trump on February 1st. Here we go.
Today, Donald Trump will be inaugurated as president, and it means his threats of tariffs against Canada become even more real. I love this country. This is a place my parents chose to immigrate to before I was born. My mom came because her sister told her that this country was a great place to raise a family and to build a life, particularly for women. And my dad came because he wanted to be a physician in a Canadian healthcare system. I love this country, and I want to defend Canadian jobs and stop prices from raising even higher than they already are. That's what Trump's tariffs threaten to do. But Trump's tariffs don't just threaten Canadian workers or Canadian jobs, they also threaten American workers. So let's not let Donald Trump divide us. Let's fight back to defend workers. Let's work with our allies in the United States to defend workers and to stop prices from rising even higher. Today,
Weak. Sounds like he's got a cold as well, but super weak. Super duper weak. Here is Steve TV, and he says Argentina's Javier Milei and Italy's Giorgia Meloni are at the Capitol. Justin Trudeau, who represents America's largest trading partner, was not invited. Trudeau is a clown and a national embarrassment. Yesterday, I mentioned as well that I didn't know where Danielle Smith was. So my show's kind of a day lag behind, right? And so somebody said, hey, dummy, like she's in Washington, D.C. for the inauguration. And I was like, oh, right. Yeah, obviously. But I was talking about the evening of the 19th, because the evening of the 19th, Trump was pictured everywhere. He was pictured, I think he was at Mar-a-Lago because he didn't leave for the inauguration on Air Force One until the morning of the 20th, as far as I understand it. So, and then he was in Pennsylvania watching fireworks at one of his golf clubs. Maybe he was closer. Maybe he wasn't in Mar-a-Lago on the 19th. But I was just saying, my intention was to imply that Danielle Smith was close to wherever Donald Trump was. But probably the person who said she's in Washington, dummy, was probably more correct than me. So anyway, I thought it was funny. But my intention was just to say that she was probably near to where Donald Trump was at that point in time. Like she wasn't off at some other conference. She was doing this, and that's notable because no other leadership of the Canadian leadership was down there doing that, and they damn well should have been. They should have been invited. They should have been taking the initiative to try and get there. They should have been using the opportunity to hobnob and brown nose and talk to people who they trade with and all the rest of it. It's a good opportunity to do that, and they didn't do any of that. So now we have a long Trump series, and wow, this is Trump cutting a cake yesterday at the inaugural ball, I guess, and he wants a song. And then he gets a sword out and starts dancing around. And this, I hope, is an analogy for the next 4 years. Okay, here we go. He's cutting a cake. He's got a sword that he's taken from one of the Marines. I think he's going to cut the cake with the sword. I think one of the Marines is offering Melania a sword too. He's just... Oh, sorry. Come on, that's fun, right? Oh, he's putting up he's doing the fight fist. And now he's doing the YMCA dance. So there you go. That's Trump at the inaugural ball. He looks like he's having a blast. Why not? Why not, right? Libs of TikTok says 2 assassination attempts, 34 felonies, 2 impeachments, arrested, 4 indictments, FBI raid. They tried everything to take him down, and he is now the 47th president of the United States of America. And so he's gonna do it all, man. I think we'll see, but he's gonna do it for the United States of America and their citizens. He's going to fight for them. And I can't fault him for that. That's what he said all along, America first. So if we, Canada, are stupid and we don't get on side and ride that train, more fool us. We're stupid for not doing it. Instead of taking the opportunity, and instead we're going to sit here and sulk and keep flooding Canada with fentanyl and illegals. Like, how does that make any sense? Trump's ask is very reasonable, and the economic benefit. Canada's missed out on the economic growth during the Biden years, and that sounds like an oxymoron, like economic growth Biden years, right? It sounds like an oxymoron, but we missed out on it. There was growth, but Canada's taxing our production, taxing our inputs, taxing our carbon, thereby taxing all gas, everything. So everything we make is artificially patted down. Our production is low, and the United States, if you look at the graphs, Canada is decoupled from the United States, and we haven't grown since 2015 or something like that. And again, because of the carbon tax, artificially keeping our economy muted. And they're doing that on purpose. And so if we dig in and double down on these stupid policies and miss out on the next growth, and I'm not even saying we should normalize, I'm not even saying Trump should buy us and we should, benefit economically from that. Although I think a case could be made. I think it would be a very interesting debate, like patriotic people who are not globalists, having a true for and against debate about should we join the Americas. Because I think on the for side, right now we can't develop our resources because the government is preventing us. We're carbon taxed to like crazy. And so in a situation where Trump takes over Canada and Trump's rules apply, the taxes are automatically reduced, the regulations are removed, and we can benefit locally from the riches that we have, from softwood lumber to coal and oil and gas and all the rest. So there's a benefit. And on the negative side, obviously, NWO, losing sovereignty, giving away the value of Canada to the United States for free, essentially. But again, it frees us from a tyrannical government that we seem to not be able to free ourselves from. Does that make sense? Okay, back to the United States. So I don't know. What do you think? I'd love a good debate with really good people talking about it. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, that's meaty. But I don't know who I'd want to see talking about it. So I don't know. You let me know. Who do you want to see talking about it? I'd be interested. I'll call them. Okay. I may not get further than that. They may not return my call, but I'll try. Brian says, First Lady Melania, Trump's hat looks like those worn by famous mafia gangsters such as Al Capone, except with the white and black colors flipped. So is she a white hat? Is this a white hat being signaled here, right? A little bit anyway. A white striped hat. White hat is like you're a good guy in secret, like spy stuff. Spy stuff. That's an oversimplification, but I'm not going to get into it now. Brian Cates says Godfather Part 2. Maybe, right? Melania is making an impression. Here's what happens when you go to the whitehouse.gov. There's a video. There's supposed to be a video that plays. Hold on. Okay, so yesterday, now it doesn't happen. Now it's just the regular website. But yesterday, when you went to whitehouse.gov, this is the video that played first. And you couldn't access anything else on the website. Nothing else was happening, just this video. So this is Donald Trump's whitehouse.gov video from Inauguration Day. Here we go. There you go. So branding, right? And well thought out, well executed. Here's George W. Bush looking super duper guilty. People were wondering, like, what is going on here? He looks like he's expecting to be arrested at any moment. But then, I don't know if this one goes that long. Yeah, he starts making like funny faces. Yeah. So I don't know. Or maybe he's just a weird man. Maybe he's just a weird dude. My uncle's kind of weird, makes faces like that all the time. It's like, you're not going to get arrested anytime soon, man. I don't think. Here's an interesting contrast. Here's Elon Musk and Baron Trump at Trump's inauguration. And the contrast in energy is why people are paying attention to this. Baron Trump is super duper serious and Elon Musk is ridiculous. So there you go. Elon Musk is making faces at the camera during the inauguration and so on and so forth. Also, I don't know if you heard about the Carrie Underwood situation. It seems like there was a mess up with the music, malfunction with the music, and Carrie Underwood didn't have any musical accompaniment. And she said, F it. We're just, because the president has to be sworn in at noon. People were critical of Biden because he was sworn in at 11:58 or something like that. And Trump didn't put his hand on the Bible this time. And the color I heard about that is no need to. He was already sworn in because he's been president the whole time. This is Trump's third term. The second term was the devolution term. But he was still effectively commander in chief because Biden was a pretend president. And there's all sorts of things that bolster that. I'm looking forward to the book of the Trump years because I think it's going to be very interesting once what actually happened comes out. Anyway, the music didn't work. Carrie Underwood said, you know what, everybody, let's just sing this song together. We all know the words. Let's sing it. Let's sing it. And it turned out really good. So I think it's worthwhile. America, is this America the Beautiful? Here we go.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
There you go. So, I mean, they walked up to her. They were like, oh, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. They're on a tight timeline. They couldn't fix it. They couldn't wait. They couldn't do anything. So she was like, F it. Let's just do it live. So good for her, right? America AF says, welcome back, Mr. President. So from account suspended to President Donald J. Trump, 45th and 47th President of the United States. The golden age of America begins right now. So interesting stuff. Here's Vesper, and he's cut a super cut of some of the important executive orders that were released yesterday. And it's like watching a movie. Honestly, it's like watching a movie where I'm not actually participating, but you're just sitting back and you're like, oh man, I wonder how this one's going to end. You know, it seems pretty crazy, pretty wild ride up till now, right? Like, I wonder what's next. So here we go. But this is the Nessun Dorma part, right, of the movie. Like, you know, the part in The Sum of All Fears. And was it also in Hunt for Red October? Was the song in Hunt for Red October? I can't remember. But this is the part where the people get their comeuppance, right? Like, this is the fun part, I hope. Fingers crossed, right? So, I mean, I've invested 10 years in this movie. I hope the ending's good. Here's Trump.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay.
Again, not standing. None of this is new. None of this rhetoric was held before his inauguration day. He was talking about this weeks ago when they were shooting at him and he got hit in the ear. Okay, so this is not new. Where's our politicians who are talking about this? Why aren't they saying we're going to reinstate the nurses? We're going to reinstate the people who were destroyed by the COVID years, and we're going to hold accountable the people who lied to the citizens. Where are those people? And not even just for COVID. I mean, like, there's all sorts of things, the gender ideology, all of that kind of stuff. Why are our politicians so weak? Period. Election Wizard says the Trump White House has worked late into the night, firing Biden appointees with the goal to remove 1,000 of them. Donald Trump says, our first day in the White House is not over yet. My presidential personnel office is actively in the process of identifying and removing over 1,000 presidential appointees from the previous administration who are not aligned with our vision to make America great again. Let this serve as official notice of dismissal for those 4 individuals, with many more coming soon. Jose Andres from the Presidential Council on Sports Fitness. So these are the ones that he's removing right now. Mark Milley from the National Infrastructure Advisory Council, Brian Hook from the Wilson Center for Scholars, and Keisha Lance Bottoms from the Presidential Export Council. You're fired. So he's firing everybody, right? And he's having a good time doing it. Damon says, for the past 40 minutes, Trump has been answering questions from the press and signing executive orders simultaneously, a skill that after 4 years of Biden feels almost mythical. So Trump is taking questions. The reporter press pool is just firing them at him, and he's having a back and forth. It's very interesting. They're asking him, what order are you signing now, sir? And this one is Keystone, the senior executive service. He's dismantling Biden's shadow government, or the government that's supposed to operate after Trump is in office. And he's supposed to not know about all of this stuff, and he's removing them now. So here we go.
It's an executive order relating to reforms to the federal workforce, including to the senior executive service.
We're getting rid of all of the cancer. I call it cancer. The cancer caused by the Biden administration.
Cancer. Getting rid of the cancer. There you go. Here is President Trump signs a declaration of a national energy emergency. There are more national emergencies. This is just the first.
This next one, sir, is a declaration of a national energy emergency.
So you also
That's
have
a big
several-
one. You know what that allows you to do? That means you can do whatever you have to do to get out of that problem. And we do have that kind of an emergency.
President Trump, at some point will you use your powers of the presidency to tell Americans who are concerned about drones?
Yeah.
A few weeks
Good.
ago,
Yeah.
what exactly
I will.
was happening?
This next
Drones. He's like, yeah, sure. Yeah. National emergency. You can do everything you need to get out of that emergency. Right. So, I mean, he seems pretty capable, pretty sharp. Alpha Warrior says national emergency at the southern border. This proclamation issued January 20th, 2025 declares a national emergency at the southern border of the United States. Key points include characterization of the situation as an invasion threatening American sovereignty. Where are our politicians who are willing to take this on? Because we are being invaded and nobody cares. In fact, they say economically it's probably better that this is happening, so we're just not going to change anything. Yikes. Because if we stop the flow of people coming in, houses being bought kind of slow down, cars being bought slows down, all sorts of really, really important markers for the economy slow down. And I think we'd be in a massive recession without the people coming in and injecting money into the economy. It's a stimulus, but the government is also giving these people money. So the government could stop giving them money and give us money, us citizens money, and well, it would still be inflationary and bad. But if they're going to give money anyway, right? If the economy needs all that money, might as well be giving it to citizens rather than foreigners. Personally. Number 2, invocation of the National Emergencies Act and authorization for military involvement. Number 3, deployment of armed forces, including Ready Reserve and National Guard to support border control, construction of additional physical barriers along the southern border, consideration of waivers for regulations restricting counter-UAS operations near the border, prioritization of policies to impede unauthorized entry of aliens, revocation of previous proclamation terminating the border emergency, requirements for reports on actions taken and recommendations for further measures. The proclamation authorizes extensive military involvement in border security, including construction and logistical support. It frames the situation as a grave threat to national security, citing concerns about cartels, gangs, terrorists, human trafficking, and drug smuggling. The order also suggests potential invocation of the Insurrection Act of 1807 pending further assessment. So there you go. There's all sorts of interesting things going on at the border. One of the things, it seems to me that Trump must have not known that he was going to win, but the movement from in like the end of last year, the end of 2024, even before Trump won, like before he won the election, the movement was already kind of being dismantled. Texas was having arguments with the federal government with regards to being able to police their borders and things like that. And so it for me adds not necessarily credibility, but could this be a military operation? If this was a military operation, the last 12 years or whatever, 4, 8, 12, the last 8 years and now the next 4, if it's a military operation, what would look different, right? Like if they're at the part where they're in the cleanup phase now, I don't know that it would look that different. If this was all a sting to get the people who were traitors out in the open, and we're at the cleanup part, and he invokes a national emergency, what does that mean for the traitors who were allowing the national emergency in the first place? Does that make sense? And if it's a national emergency, who caused the national emergency, will there be accountability for the national emergency, right? Here's Rachel Maddow and one of her people talking about the emergency at the southern border. I don't think this is the right one. Maybe it is. Hold on a sec. I'll double check. Yes, this is the right one. So they're making fun of this idea that there's a state of emergency at the southern border and an invasion. Here we go.
A state of emergency is officially now in effect on the border. Does it feel like an emergency where you are standing?
Feels no different than 20 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago or an hour ago when we got here early this morning, Rachel. The one practical change that we do know that has gone into effect here is that CBP One app that was put into place by the Biden administration, part of their stated effort to have a more fair, safe, humane, orderly process at the border, has been discontinued by the Trump administration and President Trump. I have to say I've reported from this spot over the course of 4 different presidential administrations for NBC News and MSNBC. In the Obama administration,
a state of emergency is officially now in effect.
Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. So he's saying, I've reported on this a bunch, and there's never been a state of emergency. I've seen people being trafficked over the American border, and I'm just some dude in my garage. Like if I know, they know, and they know they're lying. Libs of TikTok says President Trump executive action megathread. Here's a list of all the executive orders that have been signed by Trump. I'm not going to go through it this way, but the list is in the links if you're interested. It's a Libs of TikTok one. So check that out if you want to look at that list. I'll just go over the highlights that I saw. Devin Stack is talking about this. I made this point before. Devin Stack is very upset about it. And Trump is trying to normalize the United States using Canada's old merit-based system. So that's what Trump's vision for the future is: a closed southern border where illegals can't get in, but you can apply to come into the United States legally and work and so on and so forth. That's his dream. He's a businessman. I'm not surprised by this. Other people are like, see, he's a traitor. I said this weeks ago. I said this on the Schmidt podcast. I said nobody is talking about basically closing the borders down, period. Nobody's talking about like the mass deportations are people who are illegal. Schmidt made a good point though. He said illegal by what year? Like how long ago did they come before Trump is just going to ignore them? And I think it's like the last 5 years, basically. Like if you came to the United States in 2015 and you made a life for yourself, I think Trump's not going to care so much. Although it could be wrong, but he's going to go after criminals using ICE, and then he's going to use push-pull economic and other things, saying like basically go back home, and if you don't go back home, you're going to lose all of the benefits that you made in the United States, so on and so forth. But anyway, this is what he's going to do with immigration.
I'm fine with legal immigration. I like it. We need people, and I'm absolutely fine with it. We want to have it. We need it because we're going to have a lot of companies coming in to avoid tariffs. If you don't want tariffs, all you have to do is build your plant in the U.S. So we're going to have a lot of workers coming in.
So he said it's part of the plan. Part of the plan. Clandestine says Biden can pardon Hunter and Fauci all he likes. Trump is not the only man that they're running from. There's another powerful man who directly accused Biden, Fauci, and others of crimes against humanity for bioweapon production in Ukraine. He and Trump are about to negotiate. Putin and his representatives have been adamant since 2022 that they want justice for COVID and bioweapons production in Ukraine. I told you I would keep telling you about this story. They have been repeatedly seeking UN's Security Council investigation and enactment of Articles 4 and 5 of the Biological Weapons Convention of 1972. If the U.S. were to stop vetoing these advances and a UN Security Council investigation confirmed criminality, it would result in an international military tribunal comprised of military judges from multiple nations. Putin said that he wants military tribunals for those who killed Russian citizens via man-made pathogens made in Ukraine during the negotiations for the end of the war in Ukraine with Trump. This topic is surely going to come up. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Here's Putin talking about this. Russian president calls for long-term peace with Ukraine and says Russia is open for dialogue with President Trump on the conflict in Ukraine.
We're also open for dialogue with the new U.S. administration on the Ukrainian conflict. The most important thing here is to eliminate the fundamental reason for the conflict. That's the most important. And as for settling the situation itself, its goal should be not a brief ceasefire, not just getting some time to regroup and rearm and carry on the conflict, but long-term peace based on respect to lawful interests of all people and nationalities living in the region. And of course, we're going to fight for the interests of Russia and its people. This is actually the goal and point of the special military operation.
There you go. Defending Russia and its people, right? So makes sense to me. Alternative News says Putin is positive about Trump. We hear statements about direct contacts with us and to protect from the fact that dialogue should be built on the basis of equity and mutual respect. Trump just has to be normal and not lie. That's all Putin wants. And I think, well, we'll see. His past behavior seems to indicate that him and Putin will be able to negotiate because Trump will negotiate in good faith, which means he's not going to lie. And he's not going to lie. I mean, he's going to tell the truth about, if there's an orange on the table, he's not going to misrepresent reality. Does that make sense? Because I think that, well, he's probably going to lie. You know what I mean? People lie. Anyway, moving on. Clandestine says Putin's military formally accused Obama, Biden, Clinton, Soros, U.S. government agencies, and NGOs of bioweapon production in Ukraine. If you don't think this topic is coming up during the ongoing Putin-Trump negotiations, you're mistaken. Putin has said from the beginning that that's one of the main reasons for the special military operation. This has been one of the most talked about subjects at the UN for nearly 3 years now. Putin is not going to agree to anything unless his stipulations regarding investigations into U.S. biological malfeasance are met. China formally agreed with Russia about this subject as well. As for how or when it gets resolved, that remains to be seen, but undoubtedly this will be part of Trump and Putin's negotiations. Yeah, watch for the deep state to try and kick this out, right? Oh, we'll start, the trial will start in 2027, and then, the first date will be in 2029, and then it'll be 2031 before we really get going on it. They'll try and lag, just like they tried and lagged the investigation into the 2020 election. 2016 irregularities too. They didn't want to investigate. They didn't investigate the 2020. So they'll do their best to stymie any kind of investigation into it, especially one with international military tribunals. But an international military tribunal makes sense if it's biolabs in Ukraine. Disclosed TV says Trump withdraws the United States from the World Health Organization. Not surprising, I don't think. Trump War Room says President Trump, I'm immediately withdrawing from the unfair one-sided Paris Climate Accord ripoff. The United States will not sabotage our own industries while China pollutes with impunity. It's not even pollution. CO2 is not pollution. But Good. Canada should stop sabotaging ourselves as well. Mia says Trump's executive order is just pure, unadulterated sanity. Here's what the order sets out. The executive order establishes government-wide biological reality of two sexes and clearly defines male and female. All radical gender ideology, guidance, communication policies, and forms are removed. Agencies will cease pretending that men can be women and women can be men when enforcing laws that protect against sex discrimination. Women means an adult human female. An executive order directs the government identification like passports and personnel records will reflect biological reality and not self-assessed gender identity. The executive order ends the practice of housing men in women's prisons and taxpayer-funded transitions for male prisoners. The executive order ends the forced recitation of preferred pronouns and protects Americans' First Amendment and statutory right to recognize the biological and binary nature of sex. This includes protection in the workplace and in federally funded entities like schools. So no more gender ideology at the federal level. And Anne says, hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.